Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of Unleashed Wrestling. I am TJ.
And I am Yorkie. And we are here to bring you the newest news of the WWE.
Yes, we are. But before we get to the news, I do want to apologize. We did not get a video out last week. Yorkie and I were both extremely busy. I'm getting ready to leave to go to school for 4 months with my job, and Yorkie was preparing for a tournament. So it's just been, it was a chaotic week last week.
It was very chaotic last week, and I am so exhausted. I was so glad to get this 3-day weekend that we got over this past weekend, and looks like we're probably going to have a couple more days up here where I'm at because we got a winter storm on the way.
Again, I know, and it's just going to miss us, but I swear, the first one misses because we're too far south. The second one misses because they're too far north, and it looks like this is going to miss us because they're too far south again. And we're right dead center in our state. So that's the crazy part.
Right, it is crazy, And for me, I'm at the north part of the state now, and that's kind of part of the reason we moved
way
up
north.
here. Right, yeah. So about 30 minutes from the state line, actually. So,
Yep, absolutely.
Tennessee gets a lot of my money sometimes for reasons.
Nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get this show on the road.
So Raw actually started off with a promo by Sammy Zayn, which was a good promo. Kind of expected a promo from him at some point, considering what happened to him last week on Raw. He came out and basically was begging for a match against Kevin Owens, and then Adam Pearce comes out, says he can't give it to him. He already talked to the board of directors. They're not going to approve it, blah, blah, blah. Sammy said he didn't care. So Adam Pearce looked at him and said, it's not official, it's unsanctioned.
Yeah, and I kind of like the route they're going with this whole unsanctioned match thing. It's been needed because you really don't see that much anymore. So it'd be a nice little something old but new.
Yep.
And they couldn't have picked two better people to do this kind of a match. Two people that have come up in the business for the past 20 plus years together. Friends turned into enemies time and time again. But they always make it good no matter what they do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We had talked about that a couple of weeks ago about their lifelong friendship. And the cool thing is they're both Canadian. So, I mean, I think Sammy and Kevin are both from Montreal or Sammy's from
Montreal. Kevin's from
maybe Calgary or Winnipeg.
Something like that.
Around there. I mean, Chamber is in Toronto, but it's still Canada. So it's going to be interesting to see if they both get pops or if Kevin's actually going to get booed.
It will be interesting to see. I think this could very possibly be the end of the line for one of the two competitors, and this is kind of a go-home match.
If it's going to be a go-home match, I see it being Sami Zayn and not Kevin Owens. I think Kevin still has some left in the tank.
And I think Sammy does too, but I think he's trying to quit while he's ahead. So he can actually walk when he's 50. Right. And I don't. I've seen this coming for a couple of years now. I've said it, before with us talking. He always gives off that energy like it's coming close to the end. And I think this might really be it. If not this match, it's leading up to it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you had mentioned it, I think it was on our debut show, how you thought Sammy was going to come out and say that he was resigning. What they're building or what they've given us so far, I think we're going to have a pretty stacked WrestleMania.
I do too. It's going to be phenomenal. The Chamber's actually going to be stacked.
Yeah, it is. But you got to, though, man. Look how good WrestleMania 40 was last year. Both nights were just solid. So Triple H knows, hey, we got to
do better than that, right?
Exactly. And, I mean, that's going to – honestly, WrestleMania 40 is going to go down as one of my top 5.
It's going to be up there for me as well.
So the first match tonight was AJ Styles versus Dominic Mysterio, which, if you remember last week on Raw, they interfered in a match with AJ Styles. AJ Styles actually asked for this match this week. So it was actually not a disappointing match.
It was not at all. You had the typical Dominic Mysterio high flyer, stealing everybody's moves, from Eddie's moves to Ray's moves. Then you had AJ out there doing his thing. It doesn't seem like he's taken 2 years off, to be honest with you.
No, it doesn't. And I tell you what, man, AJ has always been one of those guys. You could put him in the ring with anybody and he makes him look good. I mean, that's how good AJ Styles is. Extremely, in my opinion, no, I don't want to say underrated because the WWE does acknowledge him, but underused sometimes, maybe.
I wouldn't say underused. He's good in the slots that they put him in, but I feel like they could do it a lot more and they just don't. Just to keep other storylines relevant.
Absolutely.
And you touched on one thing with the whole, he's a good worker and everything like that. I can't recall the last bad match that I've seen from him, which I guess that makes sense why he is the phenomenal one. Because, that's exactly what he is. He's phenomenal. He's good at what he does. He puts people over, even if they are getting a ton of heat on their own.
Yep.
I still have the the respect for Dominic and what he's done with this character. I don't discourage the fact that he is using Latino heat, Eddie Guerrero. I just feel like that the Latino heat is an homage thing with, the lineage of that family and the two families so far back. I don't hate it. I think it's cool to see that he's paying the homage that he is paying, but as a wrestling fan, I do hate him with him being the heel that he is. I still don't think it's a good fit for the Judgment Day. I think he needs to be doing something on his own, or him and Carlito off doing their own thing and not being part of the Judgment Day. But I also see that that's kind of how that's going, that the Judgment Day is about to split just because of all the tension and everything going on there. And we'll talk a little bit later on about, some of the matches, because there's some things that happened later in the evening where last week Finn had said something about winning championships and bring it all to the Judgment Day, and then nothing ever coming of it. So I think it's going to be the start of the downfall.
There's just so much tension going on with them right now. It'll culminate at, around, or a little bit after WrestleMania. I think they're kind of all building in that towards that direction. However, we're going to talk about the women's tag team match here in a few minutes, so I'm not going to bring that up just yet. But going back to your point about Dominic Mysterio, I agree with you. It's a massive sign of respect to Eddie Guerrero. But see, Dominic's not the only one who does it. Bayley does stuff.
Yeah,
to pay tribute to Eddie Guerrero because that was her hero. Like
that was her hero growing up and everything. But that's different. Like Dom does it in a way that Eddie was doing it when he was still wrestling.
Yes, and like the average wrestling fan would say that's disrespectful, but a hardcore wrestling fan who's follows it, who has followed it their whole life will say no, that's not disrespectful.
It almost brings a tear to your eye.
Yes. It does. As a heel, yes, it's disrespectful, but as a wrestling fan, it is extremely cool to see. It's a huge compliment, in my opinion.
It's a major compliment, and especially as how good he does it. And that's one thing about Dominic Mysterio. He does not have to speak on a mic. He does all his with his in-ring competition. Like it is insane.
Yeah, he don't really have the opportunity to speak.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like he makes up for it in the ring.
Absolutely. Could you imagine him having a Paul Heyman?
Oh,
as his mouthpiece.
Imagine.
Golly, man! You talk about the massive heel heat.
Oh yeah. Like I'm just waiting for him to come out in this lowrider every week. You know what I mean? Like it's like when you gonna start doing it? Now let's talk about the Dakota Kai match versus Ivy Nile for the #1 contender spot for the Intercontinental Championship against Lyra Valkyria. I think that's going to be a good match. Personally, I think Lyra keeps it. I just like Lyra Valkyria and what she's done with it so far, up and coming. But if anybody does take it, it would be the winner of this match. And this was a good match. There's a really good storyline here, especially for American Made. Because, the whole Chad Gable going off to learn the ways of the lucha. And before he left, he said something to the effect of, we're champions and we need to bring championships into this faction. And he doesn't think that they have what it takes to do it. So, obviously we didn't have our show last week, but there was a tag match between the Creed brothers and the War Raiders.
Yep.
And obviously the Creed brothers lost. I was interested to see what this match was going to bring, if they were going to kind of go the same route with this one as that match, or if they were going to go the different route where she actually wins. And it was a good match. Don't get me wrong. I was a little bored with it for a little bit, but then it picked back up, and it actually became a very good match. Dakota Kai, she can work, but she can't work for long periods of time. And
she's been injured so much.
That's what I was about to say. It goes to her being self-conscious, I guess, about injuries and not wanting to cause any more or worsen the injuries that are already there. So I understand. Like, I'm not.
Oh yeah, I do too.
I don't want somebody. I mean, granted, they're in that business, but I don't want somebody to go out there and hurt themselves knowing that they could have prevented it by not doing as much. But it was a good match all in all. And obviously, Dakota Kai comes out with the victory over Ivy Nile. What were your thoughts on the match?
So before I get my thoughts on the match, I want to go back to what you said about the tag team match last week. The Creed brothers had the match won, and they got themselves disqualified. Why? I mean, obviously, it's storyline purposes, but I'm curious, very curious to see how this is going to go moving forward with the whole American Made thing. Because, like you said, Chad Gable specifically said, you better have championships when I come back. The Creed brothers had the titles. They had them.
Oh, yeah.
But they got disqualified.
And then they got disqualified because they were being dumb and they got in their heads. And
exactly.
Just lost it. And, again, storyline purposes, I get it. But at the same time, you have the match win the match, and then do all that stuff. Like,
exactly. Now
you wait to go excessive.
I agree. I like Ivy now, and I like the Creeds. You already know how I feel about Chad Gable, but I think Chad Gable would do better in a solo run if they're going to give him a title.
See, but
he's good with the team, but every time they do, they don't push him right.
And every time he goes solo, he just falls further back. He's one of those. He's good, but they don't give him the type of storyline he needs to be great.
Agreed, 100%. 100%.
You know what I would love to see? I would love to see, and we didn't hit on this in the first match. I forgot to mention this. At the end of that match, at the end of the first match with AJ Styles and Dominic Mysterio, Braun Breaker comes out.
Yes, that's right.
And so it starts a brawl there, and AJ Styles kind of does his thing, slips one by him. Dominic gets the spear, and then AJ Styles just kind of messes up Braun Breaker, and then Braun Breaker just looks at him. So that sets up a storyline there. A good one for Braun Breaker would be Chad Gable.
I love Chad Gable as a heel. When he was playing the whole underdog card as a babyface, I was like massively rooting for him.
Yeah,
but again, like you were talking about, for some reason they either just stopped the push or they just didn't know exactly how to push him. But I mean, dude, you put the dude out there with a freaking broom handle or broomstick, and he'll freaking make it look like a 5-star match.
Right. And and that's what I don't understand, why he's not getting the traction. And they're having, and when they turn him heel, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is going to work.
I thought it was going to be it too, for sure. But my thoughts on the match, I thought it was a good match. I'm like you. It kind of got stale for a few minutes. That may have been the intention to kind of slow the pace of the show down because up to that point, it was just like a boom, boom, boom. Right. So much stuff happening. But, we talked about this when they were doing the tournament. I was personally pulling for Dakota Kai, but because of her history of being injured, you don't know how much longer she's got. I mean, Liv Ricciari is extremely young, so she's got plenty of years left. But Dakota seems the past 2 years she's been injured, 2 or 3 times?
Well, she's had that lingering knee injury.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Lyra will still retain, but I hope they make Dakota look
good doing it.
Good. Yeah, good doing it. I don't want to say dominant because honestly, if you put them next to each other, Lyra would be the more dominating figure.
Like I said, she's a good up-and-comer. Like, ever since she's come out of NXT into the main roster, she has been phenomenal at everything they have thrown at her.
So then we get Penta versus Pete Dunne. Kind of a continuation from last week as well. Penta fought Ludwig Kaiser last week. Pete Dunne kind of came down, didn't do anything, just kind of sat there and looked as Ludwig Kaiser beat the crap out of Penta. So then we get this match this week. Again, good match. I love Penta. Pete Dunne is one of those two that very technical, very, very technical wrestler, and very
great cruiserweight. Very great cruiserweight.
Oh yeah, he is. And then of course at the end of the match, you get Ludwig Kaiser coming out and attacking Penta again. So my question is, are they setting up for a triple threat, or are they setting up for Penta versus Ludwig Kaiser maybe at the Chamber, and then maybe you incorporate Pete Dunne at WrestleMania?
I think it's going to probably be a triple threat match just because it's obvious that Pete Dunne doesn't want Ludwig out there. Or Ludwig didn't really want Pete Dunne out there. So it's either going to be a triple threat, or they're just putting on a face to say they don't want it to happen, and they're about to form a tag together. Because it's obvious Ludwig is pretty much done with Gunther. We'll see. But anyways, with the whole, I think it's going to be a triple threat. I really do.
I can see it going that way. I can definitely see it going that way.
So what I think is going to happen now is probably next week we're going to get Pete Dunne versus Ludwig, and Penta's going to come out. And that's what's going to set it off. And then after that, you get the Roxanne Perez versus Raquel Rodriguez in the Elimination Chamber qualifier match, which I thought that was a solid match.
I did too. And I really did too.
For a couple of reasons. You have the Judgment Day tag versus the one person. Raquel's been calling out Roxanne for a little bit now, saying that she's not ready and all that stuff. And then Roxanne's trying to prove herself. And I think she did a very good job in this match of being able to prove herself that she can compete on the main roster. And
she proved herself in the Royal Rumble.
She did. And then this just kind of put icing on the cake. And, and it was a good match. It went as expected. I hate to say it, but it did. It went as expected. You knew there was going to be a lot of, Liv coming in and trying to interfere, but not being able to, and then running like a little crybaby because she's scared to get hit. But what were your thoughts on the match?
I was about the same. I pretty much picked Roxanne a couple weeks ago to win this match. But there was one point where I thought they were going to have Raquel and Liv in the Elimination Chamber, but it wouldn't make sense for the storyline to do that because they're getting Naomi and Bianca for the women's tag team titles. So if you watch SmackDown this past Friday, Nick Aldis called Naomi and Bianca into the locker room or to his office, said, "Hey, I've got a break in the case. It's a video. We don't know who shot it, but take a look at this." And it showed Naomi and Bianca at the ambulance where Jay Cargill was, and then it showed off to the side Liv and Raquel walking off. I don't think Liv and Raquel had anything to do with it. I really don't. I I'm still hoping that it's Bianca because I'm really hoping to see a heel Bianca, but it's probably going to be Naomi.
Well, last year when Jey debuted, I was like, this would be a good match, and it would be Bianca versus Jade Cargill. So I'm right there with you on this whole it being Bianca, and they're going to start that traction. But what does that do for Naomi?
Maybe Naomi was in on it, and she helped Bianca, and they both turned heel.
Or, hear me out here, Bianca turns on Naomi at the Chamber.
But back to this match, it went as expected. It really did. I think that Roxanne Perez is ready for the main roster. She was ready for the main roster last year. And I think she'll get a push pretty quickly.
I do too. And if she does somehow, some way pull this Elimination Chamber match off, I guarantee you they put a belt on her.
And I won't be mad about it.
I won't be mad about it. I won't be mad about it, but I'll be upset.
Rhea is so professional. Like, she has no problem putting people over. So if they really wanted to go the direction of putting Roxanne over her at WrestleMania, Rhea would do it. Charlotte did it for her a couple years ago. And Rhea understands the whole passing of the torch thing.
Let's get into the next match, which in my opinion was the match of the night and could have been a match of WrestleMania. In a way, it was at one point. But you want to do the honors of telling us what match that was there, Mr. TJ?
The main event, which is a match we're talking about, was Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins for the last two. So whoever won this match got the last spot in the Elimination Chamber. And this match was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal match. We'll talk about the winner here in a minute, but a good back and forth match, man. Those two in the ring, they have good chemistry, like good in-ring chemistry. They work well together. Of course, they worked together in ROH, in Ring of Honor, like a long time ago. So they've done it before, but to see them two in the ring again, man, and to see Finn Balor finally get a main event spot, I was super happy.
I was too.
I was really happy.
And it's deserved. I've always been a fan of Finn Balor, but I'll always be a fan of Seth Rollins. I know.
No, look, so I do like Seth Rollins. I do like Seth Rollins. My favorite Seth Rollins was Authority Seth Rollins.
I see that.
Well, and of course Shield, but
and I know the Monday Night Rollins thing got a little stale. It didn't resonate, but I mean it's Seth Rollins. He can pretty much make anything work. I saw an interview where he was, I think it was Van Vliet he was talking to. He got asked about his wardrobe, and he said Seth Rollins' wardrobe takes up a whole entire closet, but his wardrobe, it could all fit in a suitcase. But and he said. And he said he's like, the flamboyant, fancy outfits that he wears, they just kind of gain traction, and that's the rest. Like, he didn't expect it to gain as much traction as it did. Me personally, for me, it's what's this man going to come out looking like next week? What is his next attire going to be?
Yeah, and I can't fully knock the whole over-the-top, charismatic, larger-than-life costumes because Macho Man Randy Savage did it.
He's a visionary, revolutionary Seth freaking Rollins. Like, come on. How can you not like that?
Oh, so I pulled for him last year. Well, I take that back. I was pulling for Drew at Mania.
I was about to say, we had that conversation.
Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, I do like Seth. But there's a time I was like, all right, he's getting overplayed. Somebody else needs this title. Somebody else needs to, somebody else needs their shot. And I'm glad they gave it to Damian Priest.
Oh, man. Would I love to see a long run by Damian Priest?
He had a decent run, but it wasn't. Yeah. Like a Cody Rhodes run.
Like a good run. I'm not going to say a Roman Reigns
7-8 month run.
But because that was just too damn long. But yeah, this match was hands down the match of the night. Like, my eyes were glued this whole match. It was
mine too. When Finn hit the coup de grace off the top, he delivered the coup de grace. Like, normally he,
Seth sold the hell out of it.
He did. I was about to say Seth sold the crap out of that. Kudos to Seth for selling that, man.
Like,
great job there.
I don't see how that move doesn't take the wind out of you. All in all, it was a solid Monday night. I know we kind of got a little off track tonight and just started babbling, but it happens.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. I thought it was a solid. I'll give it a 3.5 stars. It was give or take. Some of the stuff was a little slow and kind of like, okay, I can have this on, but I can do other things while I'm listening and not actually paying attention to what's going on. And then other things, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm sucked in. I can't stop watching. So I give it a good 3.5 stars. It's kind of giving you a feel of how Elimination Chamber is going to go, and I'm okay with that. We'll see what happens next Monday. So,
yeah, that was going to be my point. Is they did a good job of setting up who's going to be in the chamber, not necessarily building towards who's going to win the chamber, but that's probably by design. Because here's one thing I have learned about WWE over the years. Prime example, Royal Rumble 2014, 2012, something like that. It was Chris Jericho. He was going to win it. They already had it written. And rumor had gotten out and it spread, and they called it audible, and Sheamus ended up winning it. So WWE is very good at swerving people. They are very good at making you think one person's going to win a match. Hint, CM Punk, Royal Rumble this year.
Sleight of hand.
But they push somebody else, which again, I'm not talking about the Rumble. I'm just talking about in general. They're really good at making a match look like one person's going to win it and then completely go another direction and leave everybody like completely shocked.
WWE's always been good at that. They always have that something in their back pocket to be like, oh, you thought. Yeah,
I got you. We got you, didn't we, sucker?
Can you dig it, sucker? What was your final thoughts?
I think it was a good Raw too. I think 3.5 stars is a fair rating. There weren't any matches that were just completely snooze fest. There were a couple matches. Well, one match that kind of, like we talked about, kind of got out of hand for a minute as far as boredom, but they pulled it together and they had a strong finish. And I'm glad to know that we know who's going to be in the chamber prior instead of the night before. I hate it when they do that. Right. Like, oh, well, we got one more match to go in the Elimination Chamber tomorrow night. Well, what the freaking crap, man? Why would you do that? So kudos to Triple H for LA. So we know who the women are, we know who the men are. And we'll do a separate video on that. But yeah, overall, solid show. So yeah, y'all make sure that y'all are subscribing to our channel, especially as we're getting this thing started. Check out this video up here above if you like review shows. And I got an idea for some shows coming up, but I'm going to get with Yorkie offline about that. And hopefully we can get those posted next week. Like I said, starting Monday, I'll be gone for about 4.5 months for school. We'll still do our shows, but this background back here will not be here for a while. So just kind of understand that, it's kind of how things happen. But we'll be able to get our shows done a little bit better because I won't have the family with me. It'll just be me. So we'll have more time to focus on putting out separate videos other than just Raw, SmackDown reviews and PLE reviews. But with that being said, make sure you follow us on TikTok. And I've got an announcement about X. So I set up an X account. I get an email saying that the account was suspended for a violation of X policy. So I sent him an email and said, what violation did I do? I'm literally just starting this page up. And so I had to unlock my password, try to log in, and it said that our account was permanently disabled, like we couldn't have it. So I emailed X, and I've emailed them 3 times and have not received a response from them.
Interesting.
So eventually we will have X. I don't know what's going on with that. But we do have TikTok. All of our audio versions of these shows are on Spotify, and the links are in the video in the bio. And then, of course, the link to YouTube.
Yeah, so with that, it's a good evening, good night, good morning, whenever you're watching this. I'm Yorkie.
I'm TJ.
And we'll see you next time. Yeet!